Being barefoot outside is an uncomfy thing to think of, as we've been taught our whole lives ever since infancy,
Boy, ain't no way, boy.
whether it be for comfort or protection from the outside world, to have something covering our feet. Welcome back, I'm Danny Farrow, and in this video, I want to let you in on my journey of being barefoot for a full year, why I did it, and whether it resulted in anything positive. So the barefoot movement started back in 2008 when Christopher McDougall wrote his book, Born to Run. He had allegedly been a runner dealing with many injuries until he visited a tribe that had been running extreme distances their entire lives completely barefoot. Upon learning this, he decided to give it a try and claimed that it ended up fixing all of his injuries, and it sparked what was known as the barefoot running movement. This movement was very much centered on endurance running and not necessarily any other athletic things or even daily life, but it began to gain speed pretty quickly and took off from 2009 all the way until 2012, where it plateaued and ultimately began to fade away. That decline in 2012 began due to plenty of runners complaining about injuries and pain since they started running barefoot. And the final straw that broke the camel's back was a lawsuit against one of the big dogs, Vibram, resulting in a $3.75 million settlement to pay out to customers for false health claims. Now, when this movement started, I was only 9 years old, meant nothing to me, and by the time I became serious about my running career was around 2014, when the movement had already fizzled out and died. And therefore, this movement had very little bearing or influence on my decision to go barefoot for a year. I wanted to do something that was strictly based off of facts and evidence, and not just some fad or trend that was ultimately going to die out. So as many of you who have been watching the channel may know, I suffered from a knee injury, patellar tendonitis, for many years. It started in 2018, and though I don't have it now, at the point where I was looking into barefoot shoes in the beginning of 2022, I still had severe knee pain. And while I was looking to fix that knee pain, a friend introduced me to barefoot shoes. He had been wearing them for just a little while now, and he was raving about them. So I figured I might as well do some research and see what this is all about. I didn't want to have to deal with this knee pain anymore, as I was frustrated from it taking away from being able to play sports and even severely limiting my movement in daily life. After thousands of hours of research, I came to the conclusion that my knee pain was not strictly a result of knee problems, but was actually a symptom where the root cause was found above or below the knee. So I began looking at various ways to improve my hip ability as well as my ankle ability, and one of those big ways was being barefoot. I again did plenty of research on the subject, and like most people, I questioned the claims and I questioned the research behind them. But I wanted to commit at least 1 year to experimenting on myself and seeing if any of these claims were really true. So now that I decided I was going to be barefoot, I had to figure out what barefoot shoes I would wear when I had to wear shoes. The goal was to be truly barefoot as often as possible, but there are some inescapable times where footwear will be necessary. So after looking at some extremely priced barefoot shoes, I decided to go with the cheapest option, as I didn't know if I was going to stick with this long term. So I found some hybrid barefoot/water shoes on Amazon, ordered them for 40 bucks, and they came in a couple days and we were ready to go. So right away with the shoes, the first thing I noticed was toe space. Other than that, it kind of just felt like a really weird and airy shoe. Many of you know that my competitive athletic background was in track and field. We're training in heavy, clunky, padded, arch supported shoes, and then racing in super constricted and confined spikes was the industry standard. So putting on these was quite the change and felt really strange, but good. Now, I ultimately didn't want to wear them too often, as I wanted to be completely barefoot, but it was good to have them on reserve when I had to wear shoes. Shortly into my 1 year of being barefoot, I noticed a few things. I noticed I was having difficulties walking on certain types of terrain. I was getting things like small twigs or splinters in my feet, which was extremely painful. I would even have to adjust my cadence and walking pattern on certain hard surfaces, as I would feel whenever I landed on my heel a shot going up my entire body directly into my brain. I would start to get these headaches from just walking on the ground. If I was to go on any runs, my feet and calves would be absolutely destroyed afterwards, leaving me sore for weeks at a time. After a couple months, I was able to make certain adjustments to not get a headache from walking, and my calves weren't as sore after running. But just when I thought I was getting the hang of it, I got a new job. And this new job in finance was going to require that I wear professional business attire at all times. And my barefoot shoes weren't exactly professional looking, but there's no way I could go back to wearing these things for 8.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. That would probably severely skew the results of this experiment. So I knew I was going to have to figure something out because I didn't want to start crushing my toes again every single day in these business shoes. So after doing some research, I finally found some professional looking barefoot shoes that had zero drop, a thin flexible sole, and a wide toe box to simulate being barefoot as well as possible while I was at work. My original idea of not paying too much money because I didn't know if this was going to work out was completely down the drain, as these shoes were not cheap. But I wasn't going to fail the challenge, so I had to make the investment. So at this point, I was many months in. I'd been going to work in these barefoot dress shoes, and as soon as I had the opportunity, I would take them off and I would be completely barefoot as often as possible. Unless I was going out to a more formal event, I wouldn't have to use them outside of work. If I was working out or going to get the mail or taking out the trash, I would be completely barefoot for the most authentic barefoot experience. And now at the time that I'm making this video, it's been a little bit over a full year being completely barefoot, and my feet are absolutely not the same. I did achieve all of the expected results. When I started, if I would ever flex my toes and contract my plantar fascia at the bottom of my foot, after holding this for some time, my foot would begin to severely cramp. But after the year of being barefoot, I could squeeze my feet and toes as hard as I could, and there would be no cramping at all, which is a sign of strength and mobility in my feet and toes that I did not have before. So I had increased toe strength and mobility, along with my calf and ankle strength increasing drastically as well. But these results were somewhat expected, as all of the studies and research I did had shown these things. But I also have achieved some more unexpected results that have really shifted the way I view athleticism and especially the footwear industry. The first being my already wide foot increased in width even more. So much so that old favorites that I used to wear all the time, I can't even put on, because it feels as though it's constricting my feet so much that it's painful. My toe splay has also increased in width. When I'm actively spreading out the toes, they're able to reach farther, which shows an increase in strength of the toes themselves, as well as an alignment of the metatarsal bones in the foot in their natural direction. I also noticed increased control in my movements whenever I'm playing sports. When I had big clunky shoes on, I felt a lot more prone to tripping up or slipping or being uncoordinated in my movements. But when I'm barefoot, it felt as though that increased sense of proprioception from having my nerves in direct contact with the ground increased my whole body's ability to be more coordinated and perform sports well. I wasn't tripping or slipping or falling or hurting myself nearly as much. I also noticed that my posture improved. I had a kyphotic curve in my upper spine, as well as some nerd neck sneaking in there as well. But over time, from just standing and being barefoot, it's easier to maintain proper posture as the spine isn't being forced to compensate as often. And finally, the most exciting result for me is my knee pain is now completely gone. Now, unfortunately, I can't attribute this strictly to being barefoot, though it's clear that it had a large effect. Being barefoot strengthened my ankles and increased plantar flexion and dorsiflexion of my ankle, which allowed it to function properly, taking stresses off of the knees, which allowed me to strengthen and therapy them properly without my ankle inability getting in the way. So at this point, I completed the 1-year challenge of being barefoot, and upon seeing the crazy results, I am not stopping. There is no way that I can go back to wearing normal shoes, especially all day, every day, after experiencing what happens when you go barefoot, at least for the short term of 1 year. At this point, I guess I'm running more of a long-term experiment to see what the results will be in 5 or even 10 years of being barefoot as often as possible. I'm excited to see what will happen, as the results I've seen so far have been extraordinary and have only improved my athletic and functional capabilities thus far. Now, if you want to try this, I would definitely recommend it, but you have to ease into it because it will shock your body. If there's one thing I could do differently, it would be just that. I would probably go more minimal on the shoe, especially when walking on hard pavement, because those headaches were not pleasant and they could have been prevented. But eventually the goal would be to go completely barefoot as possible, as it's also increased the tolerance of the skin on the bottom of my foot to walk and run on these harder surfaces without getting punctured or pierced like I was before. Just like your hands get calluses from weightlifting or pull-ups, your feet also get calloused from walking, running, jumping, cutting on hard surfaces in bare feet. So take my story and apply it to your own life. But to take full advantage of your barefoot experience, or even to just start building up strength from the ground up, you're gonna wanna check out this video next to actively build up the strength and mobility of your ankles so that you can start working on other issues, maybe in your knees, hips, or back. I'll see you over there. Go be human.